Vitamin B6, also known as pyridoxine, is one of the most versatile yet underrated nutrients in human health. Despite being involved in more than 100 enzyme-driven reactions, particularly those tied to amino acid metabolism, it receives a fraction of the public attention compared to its more celebrity counterparts like vitamin C, vitamin D, or even B12. Its obscurity doesn't stem from a lack of importance. Rather, it's because many of its roles are invisible and molecular, making them harder to package into eye-catching health claims. But behind the scenes, B6 plays a quiet yet critical role in brain function, hormone regulation, immune resilience, and cellular health. It's the kind of nutrient that doesn't need the spotlight to be indispensable. One of B6's most fundamental roles is its activity as pyridoxal 5' phosphate (PLP), its active coenzyme form. PLP enables key reactions that metabolize amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, which in turn influence everything from muscle repair to mood regulation. PLP-dependent enzymes participate in transamination, transferring amino groups between amino acids, decarboxylation, crucial in synthesizing neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, and deamination, removal of amino groups to facilitate nitrogen disposal. Because these processes are foundational to protein synthesis and neurotransmitter balance, a shortfall in B6 can have surprisingly wide-reaching effects on mental health, physical strength, sleep, and inflammation. Still, B6 remains an unsung hero, often left out of wellness conversations dominated by more marketable nutrients. The cognitive impact of B6 is one of its most compelling features, though largely unpublicized. Several studies have shown that adequate B6 levels support mental clarity, emotional stability, and resistance to stress. This is due to B6's central involvement in synthesizing serotonin and GABA, neurochemicals that regulate mood and anxiety. Low B6 status has been linked to irritability, nervousness, and even depressive symptoms. The deeper implication here is that B6 isn't just a maintenance nutrient, it's a mood modulator and a neurochemical architect. Yet, because its benefits accumulate subtly over time rather than producing a quick visible effect, it often slips under the radar of both consumers and supplement marketers. One of the lesser-known truths about B6 is how its balance, rather than simply its presence, is key. While deficiency is more common than people assume, especially among the elderly, alcohol users, women on oral contraceptives, and those with chronic inflammation, too much B6 can also cause problems. High doses, typically over 100 to 200 milligrams per day, over long periods can lead to sensory neuropathy, a nerve condition that causes numbness and tingling. But this toxicity threshold is far above the daily needs of most people, which hover around 1.3 to 2.0 milligrams for adults. Unfortunately, due to the potential for toxicity at extreme supplemental levels, vitamin B6 often ends up being treated with caution in formulations, which ironically leaves many mildly deficient users underserved. Modern diets also complicate the B6 equation. Although it's present in a variety of foods such as poultry, fish, potatoes, and bananas, food processing and cooking can degrade B6 content substantially. And while outright deficiency is rare in developed countries, suboptimal levels are surprisingly widespread, especially in people with high-stress lifestyles, inflammatory conditions, or poor gut health. Even more concerning is that certain medications, including isoniazid, hydralazine, penicillamine, and even some anti-epileptics, interfere with B6 metabolism, often without routine clinical monitoring. This leaves vulnerable populations unknowingly depleted, despite otherwise healthy-looking lab results or diets. Another overlooked aspect of B6 is its critical role in homocysteine metabolism. Alongside folate and B12, B6 helps convert homocysteine, a potentially toxic amino acid, into less harmful compounds. Elevated homocysteine has been associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and even pregnancy complications. In this triad of vitamins, B6 acts specifically on the transsulfuration pathway, converting homocysteine into cystathionine, a precursor to the antioxidant glutathione. This places B6 not just in the realm of neurotransmitter health or protein metabolism, but also as a contributor to vascular protection and oxidative stress reduction. Despite this broad spectrum of influence, vitamin B6 is rarely highlighted in public health campaigns or supplement advertisements. This may be partly because its functions are difficult to summarize in a punchy slogan. Unlike vitamin D with its sunshine narrative or vitamin C with its antioxidant cachet, B6 doesn't have a simple metaphor. It's biochemically complex, lacks a distinctive deficiency disease with dramatic symptoms, though historically, severe deficiency caused pellagra-like symptoms and isn't commonly framed as a silver bullet. This makes it harder for marketers to build a wellness trend around it, even though its physiological importance rivals that of any micronutrient. There's also an economic layer to B6's obscurity. As with niacin, it's inexpensive and unpatentable in its natural form. This reduces financial incentive for pharmaceutical companies or supplement brands to invest in clinical trials, aggressive marketing, or public awareness campaigns. The most widely recognized B6-containing product is probably a prescription combination used to treat morning sickness, pyridoxine plus doxylamine, which illustrates how even in the pharmaceutical context, B6 is treated as a component rather than the star. It also doesn't help that the food industry doesn't benefit much from promoting B6-rich choices. Fortified cereals and meal replacements tend to highlight B12, folate, or iron instead. The final irony is that B6 contributions become most apparent when they're absent. People who go from chronic low levels to optimal intake often report better sleep, calmer moods, more resilience under pressure, and improved skin health. These benefits are real, but they take time and don't come with dramatic before and after transformations. The changes are slow and systemic, which makes them easy to overlook. But in a biological sense, B6 is a power tool, something that quietly strengthens the foundations of numerous systems, even if it never gets its moment in the limelight. In the end, vitamin B6 might best be thought of as a molecular multitasker, one that doesn't need a claim, but deserves more recognition. It exemplifies how modern nutrition often overlooks subtlety in favor of sensationalism. If wellness culture could move beyond trends and focus on function, B6 would find itself in a much more appreciated role, not for what it promises quickly, but for what it sustains quietly over time.